I want to welcome everyone to this briefing on the need to upgrade rules to ensure that workers and other investors receive quality, unbiased advice when they invest in securities, either in the retail marketplace, where the SEC has jurisdiction, or within their retirement accounts, where the Department of Labor has jurisdiction. Again, thank you all for being here. My name is David Certner. I'm the Legislative Counsel and Legislative Policy Director for AARP. Let me just start off by saying that most Americans assume that the financial professionals provide them advice based on their own best interest. But unfortunately, that is not always the case. Unless an advisor has a fiduciary duty, in other words, a legal requirement to act in the consumer's best interests, he or she could then be getting advice that's tainted by the advisor's own interests rather than the interests of the consumer. Today, the SEC is looking to update its regulations on investment advice in order to more fully address the issue of brokers who market themselves as trusted financial advisors, but really are regulated more as salespeople without the obligation to put the interests of their clients first. As a result of this regulatory loophole, all too often we have financial advisors who recommend investment products that either have high costs or are poor performing, or simply expose the investor to unnecessary risks. And we all think this is really critical because today, and you understand what the economic environment is, you know how difficult it is for people trying to save. In other words, modest income and middle income Americans, they need to make sure that every dollar counts, and they simply cannot afford to have an investment advice that costs them thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars over their lifetime. The Department of Labor is grappling with similar problems as it relates to Americans whose retirement security depends on their ability to save and invest successfully through their retirement plans, such as their 401ks and their IRAs. The ERISA fiduciary protections are the basic rules that protect workers' retirement savings from either fraudulent or deceptive financial management. And with the dramatic shift that we've seen over the last generation to individual type accounts like 401k plans, more and more people are required basically to invest their funds properly in order to achieve a secure retirement. These decisions can be very complicated, and for many people who are not investment professionals can be very difficult, and many often turn to investment professionals for help. But unfortunately, given this change in the marketplace, the key components of ERISA's fiduciary rules really have not kept up, and critical gaps remain in that statute as well. And one of the reasons that brought us all together today was the introduction of a bill in Congress we think misnamed the Retail Investor Protection Act, which is H.R. 2374. Now, this legislation would delay and possibly derail rulemaking efforts by both the SEC and the DOL. These are efforts designed to protect investors and retirement plan participants from financial service providers who essentially seek to profit at their expense. We think this legislation ignores the need that's been well established in the marketplace, as well as the extensive review that's been conducted by both agencies on this issue. By delaying the SEC rulemaking, this legislation essentially also prevents the DOL from acting to protect retirement plan participants. This is because the legislation essentially requires the DOL to wait to adopt its own rules under ERISA, which is the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, until after the SEC has completed its rulemaking under the separate statutes of the securities laws. And we're basically all here today on behalf of investors and workers who are trying to save for retirement opposed to this legislation. We think it's critical that we move ahead and update the regulations dealing with investment advice. We know that many of you may have heard quite a bit from the financial services industry, and we're happy for the opportunity to potentially correct some misimpressions that some people may be under, as well as to emphasize the importance of having updated rules for consumers. So our panel today will focus on the importance of a true fiduciary standard under both the securities laws and ERISA, and what it means for the millions of Americans who need to save and invest for the future. And hopefully we'll have plenty of time for questions.